99% of why people do the things that they do is a function of their childhood, which I started paying way more attention to now. And now I see why people's surroundings and upbringing and schooling and aspirations when they were kids, they stick with you till you're 70 and 80. Try to start putting pieces of the puzzle together. Everybody has a certain makeup, right? Psychologically or physiologically, we are one of one. Our genetic makeup has never existed and will never exist again. So I am one of one and you are one of one. Very important to understand the roots of why we do what we do and why we are driven the way we are from what we were lacking as children. So
Be minimally processed.
Thank you so much for doing this, Harinder. I'm so excited for this episode. And I'm going to start with the first question, which is, how many books do you read in a year?
I get that question a lot nowadays. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Really enjoyed some of the episodes that I saw, and really looking forward to this chat. To answer your question, in a year, I don't know. It's definitely three digits. I try and get through about three a week. I can do two a week easily. Yeah, two a week is, I think, a baseline. Sometimes if I'm reading something smaller, like if it's a 100 page or 150 page, then of course I can get through it in a day also. But if I have nothing else to do in the entire day, sometimes I can get through slightly more. Yeah. Basically, I don't have a life.
I'm sure you do, because we're going to get into some of the initiatives that you're part of later in this episode. But the reason I started with the question of how many books do you read is because I think we're in an era of consumption more than creation, and reading, especially when you look at the past philosophers and the great entrepreneurs, they were avid readers, and that was why they were so insightful, and they had those ideas, and innovation was much more prevalent those days. And I want our listeners and viewers to also be inspired by some of the tips that you want to share on how you read so quickly. Like 150 pages, you said you could get through it in a day. So what did you have any training to read faster? How is it that you absorb information so quickly?
So the first part of the question, I think that's super pertinent. I think reading is fodder for the mind as much as exercise is fodder for the body, and just to so if I don't read on any given day, right, and this could be anything, right? I could be reading a blog, I could be reading a few nice emails, or I could be reading a book. If I'm not reading, I feel mentally lethargic. It's like if you've been regular at the gym for a long time, and one day when you miss it, or you're down with a runner's cold or something like that, you feel something is missing in your day, right? You just feel slightly sloppy. That's the feeling that I normally feel. Yeah, I've always read. There have been phases in my life when I have not been able to read as much as I can right now, and probably there'll be phases in my life where I won't be able to read again as much as I do right now. I think it's all a function of where you are in your life. Sometimes I'm guilty of doom scrolling through Instagram reels. We don't have TikTok back here, thank God. We just have one drug to obsess ourselves with. But sometimes there's a lot of that, like everybody else, right? Because it's easy consumption of dopamine, that kind of does it has an addiction engine which is built by billion-dollar corporations. So it's very difficult to fight that unless and until you develop an actual active habit. Uh, did I get training to read? I did, to be honest. What I did is, it's not formal training. I didn't take a course, but I have read some books on how to read better. I have, so there's this a bunch of videos. I can probably send the link to you. You can put it in the show notes of how to read faster. I just said, I was like, okay, if I can read faster, then it'll be so much nicer. And none of this is rocket science. Yeah, you can just go to YouTube and you can find a lot of these videos which just help you read faster. I can tell you top two, three things right now which will help you. Reading with your finger is something we used to do as children, but then we stopped doing it because it wasn't a grown up thing to do. I read with my finger, right? So it helps me keep pace. It's either a finger or a pen, but I have to go line by line. I have to keep doing this. It helps me keep the tempo on. The second thing is a lot of people worry about retention. One big mindset move for me was to put the pressure of retention on the author. It's your job to entertain me. It's your job to make sure that I absorb the message. If I don't, it's not my job. So I think it takes a long time to rid yourself of the guilt. But that's an important thing for all readers to do. That and abandon bad books. It's absolutely okay. So just read. Just read the books which not everybody tells that you should read or you think you should read. Read where reading becomes effortless. So I pretty much abandon 50% of the books. By abandon, I mean this could be 30%, 50% of the book, and then I just feel it's not doing it for me, and I'll abandon that book. So probably 50% of them are like that, because I don't put the pressure on myself to be able to complete the story. Like, it's fine. Yeah. In a human lifespan, there's only a fixed number of books that you can read, a fixed number of movies that you can watch, a fixed number of music albums that you can read. So, so I'm very careful of what I let in into my brain, because that forms my worldview. And that's what people should do. Just be a little less hard on yourself. Watch some YouTube videos on how to read faster. Time, and sometimes I think it doesn't need to be an exercise or a sport, right? You do need reading for leisure, not exactly for. It's not a competitive sport. So don't get me wrong, but sometimes just to have a baseline approximation of, hey, a year ago I was at say 250 words a minute. Today I'm reading at 400 words a minute. So you can get through a lot of material quite faster, and never worry about retention. Because I heard this on a Tim Ferriss podcast. He said this. He's like, the good shit sticks. Don't worry about it. It
Yeah.
will stick. Right. So if
Yeah.
it's genuinely good, you will remember it even 10 years down the line. So great lines from great. We remember the Harry Potter lines that we read as kids, right? And we remember those dialogues of what Hermione said when this happened, and then what Ron said when he was kind of playing the chess. And we remember it because it stuck, and we read it once. How many times did you read Philosopher's Stone? You read it once, right? But you still remember that. You remember it from the movie. So our brain, when
Hmm.
it's fully engaged in autopilot, has this amazing ability to absorb and remember everything till you put the pressure to remember on your brain.
That's very true. But I think our generation right now, like you mentioned, right, we want the quick dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And reading, it because we have gotten into this technology era, we have gotten away from putting effort. And so the TikTok, the Instagram reels, the YouTube reels, they give us that quick dopamine hit, and we rather consume and learn that way than through reading, even though there are more benefits from reading. So what are some benefits that you found from reading?
I think the first and foremost is that I think enough people have talked about the information overload that we're in. It's
Mm.
like sometimes it's like wearing noise cancellation headphones. Sometimes I think in the modern day and age, the kind of overload of stimuli that we are almost surrounded by, right? Like at home and office,
Yeah.
on the road, wherever else. Sometimes it's like just wearing noise cancellation headphones. If you're reading a fiction book, there's one story now which is kind of taking shape inside your head. Or if you're reading a non-fiction book, there's like one stream of thought which you're going through and contemplating. So it just shuts out. For a second, you don't know if groceries are due. For a second, you don't know if your boss is a great person or not. Like, it just, so, yeah, so that's what I consider it, and that's why, and that's therapeutic for a lot of people, right? Especially like me, most of all, because I feel till I can shut all the noises and be like totally absorbed in somebody's work, in somebody's art that somebody may have spent a couple of years perfecting. I think that's beautiful. It's meditative, and to be able to keep a good balance of your own mental health, your ability to focus, your ability to do deep work. I think
Yeah.
reading becomes a precondition. And the thing is, now it's just so simple because nobody is doing it. If you're able to read long pieces of deep analysis, it spills through in every part of your life. Your ability to stick with things, low stimulation things for slightly longer time, it goes up infinitesimally higher if you're able to kind of read a book. If you're able to read a 500-page book, that means you don't have commitment issues, right? First of all, right? People are getting their stories from 40-second reels and TikToks, right?
Yeah.
If I'm able to stick with some characters for 500 pages or 1,000 pages, I respect people who read fantasy books and there are 20 books in a series and stuff like that. So uh, that shows that you stick with it, and that spills to many other parts of your life in a very, very positive way. So I think for mental health, for focus, concentration, and for to be able to uh, I think to be able to productively contribute in the information age, I think reading long form is a
Yeah.
precondition, not reading tweets.
I agree. There was a time where I used to read very frequently, at least 5 days a day, 5 days a week. Sorry, but due to life, I there was a gap, and then I recently got back to reading a few months ago, and I realized how much my focus was literally spoiled because of the way that I consume content before that. I was literally consuming, more visual content like Instagram, YouTube, and visual forms of content, and I couldn't even focus. I had to reread the same paragraph in order for me to absorb that message. And then I realized, how much our information technology generation is really ruining our minds and especially focus. And just imagine what that's doing for the kids. And they're the future of the next generation. So yeah, and I just want to wrap up this reading portion and by asking, what are your favorite forms of reading? Is it, or actually not forms, genres? What's your favorite genre?
I used to be a non-fiction person all throughout my life, all throughout my adult life at least. I have come back to fiction with the I would like to say with the enthusiasm of a fresh convert. So I have like the past 10, 15 years of amazing books to get through, and that's why I just love. So that's been a big change for me, at least in the past year or so. Uh, I read substantially more fiction now than non-fiction. It's probably 90% to 10%, which was inverse probably a few years back. But within fiction, I really have started liking fantasy a lot. That's something which I used to look down upon. Okay, yeah, this is not literature. Literature is supposed to be lit fig. It's supposed to be Booker Prize winning, and so on and so forth. And of course, I went through some of those. But like once I started, like people started giving me recommendations. Some people started sending me books, and I was like, okay, let me just look at it with an open mind. And some of them were stunning. They were like absolutely amazing. And there's no way you can just. They have a way of sucking you in. So I love reading fantasy. I've started reading a bit of sci-fi. These are genres where I never read earlier. But yes, anything which is great, poetic, and which is core lit fake will always take the cake for me. Yes.
Yeah, I can't help but ask one more question
Please, we'll do as many
on
as you want.
reading.
Hmm.
So, you know especially for those who really want to read, because online there are people, entrepreneurs, inspirational folks in the industry recommending books, but it's so hard to get started.
Yeah.
Like you buy the book and it just stays on the bookshelf.
Hmm.
So what are some of your tips for those who are really struggling to go past one or two pages and to really stick through, and regain that focus for reading?
Awesome. So the first cardinal rule is something I also follow for my own reading. Excuse me. Leave your phone outside the room that you're reading in. It has to be done. Unfortunately, excuse me. Unfortunately, it has to be done. Always leave your phone outside the room in which you're reading, because it's not going to happen. It To the best of us, I'm not able to focus if I have my phone chirping away notifications on one side, or something came to mind that okay, I need to see what this is, or even there's something in the book. Okay, let me just Google this and see what the reference is about. And then that turns into like 20 minutes of just checking emails and WhatsApp messages and everything else. And so leave your phone outside. Even if you earmark 20 minutes a day, those 20 minutes, you are dead for the world, which means lock your door. You want to sit on the throne, you want to sit in your bedroom, you want to sit on your in your balcony, at work, wherever you get time. The space is not important, the time is important. If you've earmarked 15 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever time suits you, make sure your phone is at least 10 meters away from you, and we can do that. Put it in your handbag, put it in your backpack, and just store it away. uh, Let those 15 minutes, 20 minutes be absolutely yours. The second thing, like I said earlier, don't focus on retention. The good shit will stick. If you just go through it, okay, let me just go through it. It's fine. If there's another parallel narrative in your head going on saying that, "Arey, I'm not able to focus, I'm not able to focus," then you won't be able to focus, right? Just say, okay, just let it be. If I'm not able to focus, if I'm not able to get this idea, it's not the book for me. Uh, Quickly abandon it. I'm sure you'll have many others in your house. Prefer reading physical books. I have found that to be better, at least to start with. Once you have a good productive habit, then you can move on to the Kindle, because that helps with speed a lot for a lot of people, and you can carry it around, and it's slightly more, and you can do multiple books at once. So logistically, it's nicer, but initially start with physical books and forget about retention. Just take this retention thought, just throw it in a bin. You're like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy. If it sticks, it's great. If it doesn't stick, I don't care. The author failed at his or her job. I think those are two things which really take the pressure off, because at the end of the day, reading isn't supposed to be performative. It isn't supposed to be competitive. It's supposed to be a leisurely activity. It's a relationship between you and a book, and there's beauty and purity in that, and that's what we need to appreciate. And it shouldn't be something, your to be read pile, your TBR shouldn't be kind of a guilt trip every time you look at the bookshelf, right? Like, had these books been exciting enough, I would have already read them. It's fine. Just divorce yourself from that pressure, and I think it'll become just so much more enjoyable. If people say that, hey, you should read this book, it's about whatever, parenting or something like that, and you don't want to read a parenting book, you're like, I want to read Harry Potter, I want to read Game of Thrones, I want to see people being killed, right? Read what you like till you like what you read. That's what I would like.
Wow. That was very powerful. And I think to add to that is just like how easy it is to turn on that Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever it is, it should be the same way to watch or to read a book when you open that book. So
Eventually you'll get there, right? Because the visual medium, the way we consume information, because here you're when you're consuming a book, you're consuming it with your eyes and your mind. When you're consuming a movie, there's ears involved, there's eyes involved, there are multiple senses, right, which can give you a sense. And of course, it's easier, but eventually when you get to it, I always say the movie in your mind is superior to everything else which is on the screen. And that's beautiful, right? Because when you're drawing up a character, you're taking a bit of what the author is saying, and you're taking a bit of your own mental models of your own experiences. Okay, maybe this guy looks like this person I met but then never spoke to, and you'll just mix and match and create this beautiful picture of a character. That's why we never like the movies from the books that we love, because those the picturization in our head is unique to each one of us. So if you're reading Twilight and I'm reading Twilight, I haven't read Twilight. I'm just using that, right? So if you have, I think Edward is the protagonist, Robert Pattinson. Okay, I guess. Okay, great. So let's assume the protagonist, he looks a certain way in your mind. He looks a very different way in mine, right? And both of us will not have the same vocabulary of what that means. So that's why it should be as effortless as opening Netflix and Prime Video, because from an aesthetic and art perspective, the movie in your head is always going to be superior because it is uniquely yours.
it's true. Yeah, I think it's just like, why are the child psychologists and they all say, let kids read now because that's how we spark their imagination. And,
Absolutely.
I think we've really gotten away from using our imagination to just seeing what's available, and our creativity is also being hampered. So,
Absolutely agree.
and so now let's pivot into your book, the best-selling book on Amazon, The Psychology of Marketing. And the next portion of that, the title is How Marketers Trick Us into Buying More. Can you tell us more about what made you write that?
So I've been doing marketing for quite a while, right, on different brands, mostly in the fashion space. And I used to think that, and I switched from electronics to fashion and to other places, and I just felt that the fundamentals remain the same. So at one point in time, I was helping sell cheap smartphones to, say, guys who ride autos, right? And then I was selling luxury denim the next year. So I was like, no matter if your customer diametrically changes, some of the fundamentals are absolutely the same. And why are they the same? It's not because some person wrote a grand theory, or it's not a science, right? At the end of the day, it's because fundamentally human beings, like what goes on between our ears, is very, very similar. It's like the principles of influence are exactly the same if I want you to buy a new bar of soap, to somebody asking another person out for a date, to convincing your kids to go to sleep early. The principles of influence are exactly the same, right? Reciprocity and social proof, and And there are times when you use danger, there are times you seduce the person. Like, for example, you can seduce your child with the promise of like a chocolate tomorrow or an ice cream tomorrow, right? So some of those things, right, are exactly the same. So like at the end of the day, human beings are fundamentally the same despite of culture and everything else. So what's behind what's the theory behind the theory is what I was always very interested in. As like, okay, let me just simplify it beyond, like, marketers love to complicate things, right, just to justify their own salaries, like to justify their own salaries and existence. I was like, nahi yaar, iske piche there is something very simple. And that's where my curiosity kind of rose. And I was like, if I ever write a book, it has to be super simple. Ideally, if you buy it at the airport, you get onto the flight, your phone is in airplane mode, you should be able to finish the majority of the book by the time the flight lands. That was the idea. That's why it's a very slim book. I've been able to condense a lot of information in very simple terms. That's what I wanted to do, because that's what a book is not a place for an author to do intellectual muscle flexing. It's a place for you to deliver value, right? Like, so I can say, okay, these are the greatest hits of my career. I could have made the book all about that, right? But that's it's very indulgent. But I want somebody like you to be able to see that, hey, even if I'm in marketing, not in marketing, interested in marketing, not interested in marketing, I get what he's saying, and it is of value to me. It's immediately applicable, not in a textbook way, but just in a fun way. So that was very important for me to do. And the second and more important thing was that a lot of times in business schools we have this disease of contextualizing theory through examples which are not relevant to us. Like, for example, Indian textbooks will have examples from Tesco which are not relevant. So, like, I don't even know what Tesco does, and what's the price positioning. Like, great. So a lot of times we're obsessed with some of those same examples. 70s may Dove did this and Harley Davidson did that, and I was like, these are great classical examples, but I want something slightly more contextual for the Indian consumer of today, right? So the person who lives in India uh, interacts with Cred and Urban Company and Swiggy and Zomato and all of those brands, right? These are the brands which make your life, right? Because these are the brands which are pretty much running your life. So I was like, okay, can we contextualize everything? When you walk into a mall, what do you see? Why you see what you see? Why is this here and not there? Like, let me just make this a part of a person's common life so that they're able to see, okay, I've seen this happen. So the entire book is built to inspire those aha moments. It's like, because you already know everything. So I would say 90% of the book is already in your head. You probably know, okay, I know what they're doing, but now I have a name for it. Now I know what's the science behind it, what's the theory behind it. And that's why it's written in a very light-hearted, very easy to digest for anybody of any level. That was why I wrote the book, and very happy to see that it's done as well as it has. I didn't know that so many people would read it. Had I known so many people would read it, I probably wouldn't have ever written it out of pressure. But good that I did.
Yeah, I think the best things happen when you least expect it. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I think when you create it from that standpoint, you tend to be more authentic, more honest, right? You don't put the end result in your mind,
Yeah,
and let that get into you. So I think that's what happened. And it's very thoughtful of you to write for the consumer,
yeah.
and not for anything else. So in the book, there's a line that says, "Emotions beat logic every single time." So can you give us a real scenario? What you mean by that?
Yeah, everything. Yeah. So I feel an overwhelming majority of our decisions are basically taken on the basis of emotion. But we don't like to be called emotional fools. We will post rationalize it with logic. Right? Like, after the fact, we're like, okay, so you want that bag because it looks good and it'll make you feel a certain way in front of your friends, in front of yourself, and it look good. But you have to obviously logically justify it. So obviously the sale is made in your head, but then you say, "Nee, yaar, this is great. I'm getting it at a discount. This colorway is not available, or I can get these many wears out of it. I can use it for a year and a half, so it'll end up kind of saving me money." So that's post rationalization. So almost everything that we buy is on the basis of logic, right? On the basis of emotion, not logic exactly. So even if you're a approaching middle-aged man, and you suddenly feel the need to either so middle-aged men, I think I have a theory that you either start running marathons or you start doing golf or motorcycles. Well, like, you have to just choose, or you start grilling meat. So you have like those 5, 6 things that men of a certain age, particularly when they're pushing early 40s or late 30s, they start getting really obsessed with one of those things. All of this is basically emotion, right? And then you'll post rationalize it. Hey, probably I need this vehicle because it'll help me save fuel, or it's more future ready and it's got this feature and that feature. No, you just like it because it looks great, but it just
Or
doesn't
everyone
sound
else is
great.
using it.
But everybody else is using it, right? Why do I need like
Yeah.
these? Why do we have so many SUVs on global roads today, right? Because they're not as practical, right? At the end of the day, but they look damn good. They look damn good, and we post rationalize it with safety and space and bunch of other things. But a car needs to look great, and so that's why at the fundamental level, all of our emotions overwhelmingly drive what we have to do, and then logic comes in later to do like a saving grace act. It's like the second supporting actor.
So how do we switch that? How do we make sure that when we're buying something from a consumer standpoint, how are we supposed to switch that? I know you talk about this in the book. So if you can give our listeners just a brief introduction so that they can gauge that interest and move forward with the book.
I think you shouldn't try to artificially manage that emotion, but you should be very aware that you're and acknowledge that you're working on emotion and not on logic. If you're buying something on the basis of emotion, does not make it wrong, does not make it less good of a purchase than something bought on logic. Need, want, desire, all of these are just different shades of the same thing, right? So if you want that pair of denim which looks kick-ass on you, you want that pair of denim, it's great. uh, the fact that if you're trying to push rationalize it with logic, uh, you will do it because we are all human beings, even if you know the trick. But being aware that okay, this is what I'm doing, I'm trying to post rationalize it, and eventually I think that really helps you be slightly more clinical with purchases and helps you get less.
Yeah, and I think it also instills a sense of awareness because, in many spiritual practices, awareness is the root of everything, right? Understanding your behaviors, understanding why you do what you do, and just knowing that is powerful because then you become more conscious in every step of the way. Um, so there's another analysis in the book that really caught my attention, which is why did this grab me analysis? So how can someone develop this awareness muscle?
What exactly, like what part of that spoke to you?
Um, so, when we just the example, right? The bike, for example, for the middle-aged man, they give reasons on either their friends could be having it, or like you said, the mileage is really decent. They could save on fuel. So when the first thought comes up, we won't think that these are the reasons why, or these are the subconscious beliefs I have about this item, right? We just, like you said, we just rationalize it by saying, oh, I need this because of XYZ factors that will help my life. But awareness doesn't come so easily, right? Because we're almost indulging in that item. And we're covering that up with so many reasons, like, okay, that's the next latest big thing now, I need that. Or, especially in the US, Teslas are going, they're everywhere now, and it wasn't the case a few years ago. And how do we justify that? Is we save on gas. It's we use these marketing strategies like, okay, it's environmental friendly. You can. There's just so many benefits with Tesla, but there's definitely other reasons why that Tesla might not be the right for us, right? And you talk about this in a way where you say this grabbed me because, but we don't think about that. That's not the first thing. So how do we gain that awareness muscle is my question.
I think even if you are a trained psychologist or a marketer, it's very difficult to divorce yourself from that thought process, right? Because a lot of it is done automated, it's
Yeah,
subconscious. But
it's influence versus manipulation at that point.
yeah, yeah. No, it is mostly manipulation with a lot of commercial transactions, and it's great.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's supposed to be evil. It's not. That's commerce, right? At the end of the day, if you're tricking your kids into sleeping early, is that not manipulation? It's the same thing, right? At the end of the day, but
Yeah.
I feel sometimes just taking a step back, right, and that's difficult to do. But I try and now do it. So taking the example of Tesla, right? Uh, you need to very fundamentally understand that your need and desire to want that product is because you want to be known as a person who drives a Tesla. And there's a certain
Mm.
image that has been put into your brain of a person who drives a Tesla. And you're already in your
Yeah.
head subconsciously thinking, okay, okay, probably I'll flex to my parents, or it should look great in pictures, and somebody comes in, I'll flex some of these cool features which come in. That's what you fundamentally want to do. If you're a man in his middle age looking to buy a very heavy motorcycle, then of course it stems from a need of doing outwardly what you consider outwardly masculine activities, uh, uh, prioritizing male friendships. That's why we have these Harley owners groups and everything else, because at some point in your life those things start becoming a bigger desire than what they were earlier, right? Because
Yeah.
you have great friends in college, and then you lose them for a decade or so when you're getting married, having kids, and then you start discovering the need for some of those girl friendships and male friendships and everything, right? So you need that.
Yeah.
So you need the golf, you need the motorcycle, you need stuff like that, right? Being but all the logic comes in later. So first you need to know, okay, hey, I am the way society is, making me feel emasculated, it's making me feel constrained, and that's why I need a place to just be with the guys and just crack open a beer and go for rides and do things which are slightly which just get my testosterone going, right? Because I think I'm losing
Yeah.
that part of my life. Why do people
Yeah.
run marathons? It's like, and a lot of people do this in their late 40s and 50s. It's because they know that these are the last flickers of youth which are remaining. And they suddenly have this realization that my body is not 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and it's showing signs of slight aging. And
Aging. Yeah.
the moment you see that, you're like, oh my god, I need to go and challenge myself and run a marathon bare chested, and that's what people do. Uh, then you post rationalize it, saying that it's great for this and it's great for that, and of course it's great for that. But at the end of the day, it's coming the psychological base of signing up for that marathon or high rocks or whatever else that you're doing is coming from a visceral and deep seated sense that of mortality, that you're aging,
Mm.
that time is going to win. So sometimes just understanding these basic psychological drives over everything else. Why do I want this deep neck shirt? Why do I want these shoes? It's because I want to be as desired by the opposite sex as I was in college. It's great to feel that ways. I haven't felt like that in a long time. I may not
Yeah.
act on it, but it's great to feel like that, right? So sometimes just acknowledging what is going on in your own head before making
Yeah.
that purchase is very, very helpful. It's very humbling at times,
Mm.
but it's like therapy you need to do with yourself to be able to truly understand, because then you'll be able to
Yeah.
rationalize your expenditures better. Because sometimes if you feel uh,
Exactly.
so when I was heading marketing for diesel in India, right, there was this. I remember sometimes we used to just be on the floor observing customers and everything. There was this lady who was really proud of this pair of denim that she wore and everything, right? And I could see that she's not what you classify as a typical diesel customer. This was clearly an upgrade for her. It's an expensive pair of denim and everything else. Uh, but then I got talking to her. Okay, what can I suggest you? Where you from? And everything. Like, of course, she got to know that I was doing marketing for the brand, and just I was talking to customers. The long story short is that she had promised herself that if I lose all of this pregnancy weight, I'm going to spoil myself with a pair of diesel denims and a nice dress and everything else. So this was the reward for her. So you have to understand every product and purchase means something for some person, right? So sometimes the psychological drive, she's not buying a 25,000 pair of denims. She's buying a reward for a promise that she made to herself. It's a promise. So sometimes getting a sense of that as a marketer, as a consumer, as a founder, that brings into the beauty in these purchases and also helps you analyze, okay, if it's something which is a reward for her getting back to her former self after having gone through so much, then whether it's 5,000, 25,000, or 125,000 doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's a reward. Um, then it helps you slightly more, so that's why it's more fun. Just think of, okay, what's the psychological drive behind this? You don't need to read any book, not my book, not anybody else's. Just think, okay, why do I want it? What am I lacking in my life that I'm looking to fill in with this product? That's a great question to ask yourself every time.
That's very beautiful the way you said it, because as a marketer, you know, I mean, again, I'm generalizing the statement. Um from a consumer standpoint, we're always thinking that the marketers are trying to trick our minds. They're trying to trick us into buying it. But you put it so beautifully that every purchase has its own reason, and everyone has their own psychological reason and emotion. And you I just love that you're just accepting that it's okay to make that purchase. But let's go back into you as a marketer, right? When you consult these companies, or someone who might be starting a product, what are some psychological techniques that you share to those companies to embed into the product so it sells?
I think the fundamental psychological drive behind the usage of that category needs to be properly understood, right? If you're selling, for example, there's a beauty brand that once asked me for advice, and I just said, okay, for this category, why do you need this, right? Why are blemishes on your face? Why are they problematic? Right? What do they make you feel in a certain way, right? And what does this help you do? If it does a certain thing, uh, what would be great for it to do better? If it's quicker, if it's slightly more concealing, if it's slightly more, excuse me, transparent. So I think the basic drive, it's because at the end of the day, the product will say that it's got vitamin C or niacinamide or whatever else that's called, and it's got all of those fancy ingredients. But at the end of the day, uh, it's a confidence booster for a lot of people, right? The day you wear slightly more elevated makeup, the day you wear stilettos instead of your usual shoes, you have a slight 10% spring in your step.
Confidence. Yeah.
And that's exactly, that's what you're buying. You're not buying the blush for a certain reason and everything. So I think sometimes understanding that, like the red bottom shoes are a certain way because you feel it helps you project a certain image. Or for example, if you're meeting your college friends after 10 years, and you want to signal success, signaling your success, okay, I have arrived in life in this last decade, right? That's a very fundamental, there's nothing to be ashamed of, right? I just think it's a very fundamental human drive. Imagine if both of us were alumni of the same college, and I wanted to flex in front of you that, hey, yaar, I've made it, man. There's one way of doing it. One day is I fire up my phone and I show you my account balance. But that's crass. I can't do that, right? What do I do? You'll see, okay, Harinder is wearing a certain watch. You are carrying a certain handbag. Uh, those are signals. Those are signals of socio-economic mobility and success. Understanding that is very important. So I feel even before you get into consulting companies or advising them on what they do, you have to understand what does that category help a person achieve in their life. Like the person who was that denim was a reward, or that handbag is a way of signaling to people that, hey, I've made it in life. New money has a need to announce its arrival. Like that's a very fundamental truth. There's nothing wrong in it. It's a great thing. And if your brands enable people to do that, that's a very beautiful thing. It's important for you to understand that. So just understand what part of their life am I making slightly less headache prone, or slightly smoother, slightly better. What am I enabling them to project about themselves? If you're in the market for a C class 3 series or an A4, it's probably all of them are 10% of each other from a price perspective. But then the Mercedes customer, the BMW customer, and the Audi customer, all of them have a certain archetype. They're all different of how they see themselves. So it's like if I value sophistication and luxury, which brand will I go for? Yes, Mercedes. Mercedes, right? Huh. So if you want a performance machine, you want something slightly peppier and younger, then you go for a BMW. If you're somebody who prides minimalism and less show and more substance, then you're likely to gravitate towards Audi. And this is what these brands have kind of built in your heads over decades and decades of amazing marketing. So you're not buying the machine. The machines are probably very close to each other in terms of price, specs, and performance and everything else. It's what that says about you. You would think that somebody wearing a juicy couture track pant is a certain kind of a person, but somebody wearing a Lululemon is a certain kind of a person. Somebody wearing Skims is a certain kind of a person. They pretty much might be the same product made in the same factory in Bangladesh mostly, right? But at the end of the day, the way these brands have been crafted, the way they've been crafted in your head, that enables you to say something about yourself, and that's important for the marketer to understand.
Wow. I I learned so much just from what you told me about marketing. I never thought about it that way because it's so innate. When we look at a product, we just make a decision instantly, or we get influenced instantly because that friend has it or that neighbor has it, and then we assume that, oh, that's a symbol of status or luxury or fame. And then because if once we get that, then it gives us a sense of confidence, but we don't actually look at that deep rooted beliefs. So I love that you go through it. So you are pursuing a PhD, am I right?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
you, yeah.
unfortunately.
Why unfortunate?
Yeah, it's been a long ride,
Yeah.
and it's a longer ride to go ahead of me. But yeah, please finish your question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, no. And by
Hmm.
the way, may I ask what your PhD is in?
Marketing. There's
Marketing.
nothing else that I know. Yash. There's I fail in, like very early on. I realized that I would fail in pretty much everything else that I put my hands in, other than marketing. That's the only thing which I think came naturally to me. So and clearly it takes me a long time to learn. So I still continuing to dabble into this degree.
Well, I really do appreciate and commend you for your commitment, because I think marketing doesn't come easily to other people. Just like I think we're all different. We all absorb things differently. We all get attracted to differently. And I wish you all the best in your journey. And my question was, so you're pursuing your PhD, which is again a long commitment. You're running businesses, building communities, and you're still reading. And all of that takes a lot of mental strength, resilience, and so much grit, right? Um, so let's talk about your initiatives. Uh, 10Xer Club. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So this is we do a couple of things. We do training and hiring for people in the marketing and e-commerce niche, and within that, I think there's some fundamental problems. People don't want to learn from professors; they want to learn from people who've actually been there, done that. The traditional hiring ecosystems are, I think, failing a lot of great talent. So we're trying to just make small efforts to make sure that that's happening. We're a very young company. We're about a year or so old, and so we've just started, and growing at a slow and sure pace, but making sure that we're doing things right the way they should be. Yes, it is. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, we need. So our fundamental hypothesis is that if you put the right set of people inside a box, if you put them together, and then get out of the way very quickly, great things will happen. And I think that's something which doesn't happen often enough. We've seen that happen. We put people in cohorts, they end up helping each other. So a lot of times we don't have to even get involved. A lot of times, obviously, sometimes there's a mentor coming and they talk to you, and there's a CMO from some big brand that everybody looks up to. That's one kind of learning, which is one to many. But a substantial part of the learning which people generate among themselves is a many to many learning. Somebody will say, "Hey, I'm looking for a virtual try on vendor for my beauty brand." Somebody will come in and say, "Hey, I worked with this vendor for my eyewear brand, and these are things that I found out. These are things that worked and it, excuse me, these are things that worked and didn't work." So those kind of conversations which happen every day at the speed of light on the groups that we have, uh, that's where the real juice and the real benefit of community network effects start coming into play, right? And that's what we want to facilitate. So a lot of times we've had people without us knowing, opening doors for each other, referrals and opportunities, and there have been so many people who've kind of helped each other with jobs and interviews, even interview prep and case studies and stuff like that. So a lot of this happens beyond my line of sight, which is amazing, which I love seeing most times. But I think our fundamental belief is that if I think people already know what they want to do, and people already have a great amount of knowledge in what they're doing. Uh, if you're able to spark curiosity in other areas which they've not been exposed to, that's half the job done. And then if we spark enough curiosity for them to be able to make connections with the other people, that's the other end of the job done. So I think our job is uh, not to train or enable hiring as much as just putting them together and then getting out of the way. That's what I fundamentally believe, and that's been a great strategy so far.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and I think you're doing a little bit of teaching while creating a revolution here, because your Instagram, for
Right.
example, it says recommending books that change you. um, and then what you're trying to do here is teach and create an impact. So what do you think is the difference between, these different roles that you have in your initiatives, especially between teaching and creating and or building a movement?
So at 10xn, I don't teach anything. So we have a module called Applied Psychology in Marketing. I've written the book on the subject. Even then, that's something which I don't train. So I just want people who are substantially better than me, way more experienced, way more gray hair in their beard, for them to come in and then to be able to talk to people. So I take zero sessions. I'm just like a assistant facilitator who's just in the background. Yeah, so I just do that. But in terms of the other things, I think like all people, I think human beings. I think this is slightly genetic, but human beings are just guided by their curiosity and their will and ability and intent to act on it. Right. I think, forever I've felt a pull in multiple directions at all points in time, and sometimes not justifiably so. But I think I continue to do that, where I want to continue to read and add value to people's reading journeys, because I feel that's something which is absolutely required. I want to be able to make some difference to the marketing and e-commerce ecosystem in the country. We've taken baby steps in the past years. I think in another few years, I think things will compound very, very quickly. Uh, yeah, in terms of other roles, I think it's just a lot of things are just guided by your curiosity to see what you can do and where you can just be useful to other people, and I think that's what I consistently let myself be guided. That's where my nose.
But I have to say, I'm very similar in the way that I want to build a community where I'm not the expert on health here, but I still have a health podcast. That when I say health podcast, I'm not saying I want people to be healthy, but it's about knowing your choices so that you can strive to be healthy. And just like what you said, I am not the expert here. I bring in experts who have years of experience developing these frameworks, and so that I'm basically just a facilitator to spread that knowledge, because everyone consumes information differently, and those who might consume this podcast just get to learn different things. And I think reading is definitely the most transformative art that has really helped me personally. I am actually a nonfiction reader. Why? Because
Is it? What are you reading?
uh,
What's on your bedstand right now? Let's put you in this part.
so I actually just finished Letting Go. It's a
Okay.
very it was a it was a long book. It took me so many weeks to finish it because, like I said, I had to reread that paragraph because my focus, I was zoning in and out. Right now, I'm actually reading How to Train Your Brain because I'm struggling with this loop of thinking the same negative thoughts over and over again. And I heard that that book will help break those patterns. So yeah, and it's very insightful.
I would suggest just intersperse your nonfiction reading with a lot of fiction, because
Yeah.
what I have now realized is that I think the best lessons in life come from fiction. They don't come
Hmm.
from nonfiction.
Really?
It's just think about it, right? Uh, we had this. Why do we have the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, right? Like, these are great epics and stories that have been told to us, but there's a very deep and firm moral center at the epicenter of all of these tales, right? Had this been a diktat, had this been a, let's say, a non-fiction book, okay, to lead a great human life, this is what you're supposed to do. Nobody would have read it. But then, you read stories of Ram, you get to know about valor and strength and duty and uh, stuff like that, right? And then you read, yeah, and you read about Hanuman, and you read about, like, so every person embodies a certain character that is a recipe for a great human life. So to be able to actually distill all of that knowledge, uh, I could either say that, hey, to be a great human being, you need to have these 20 things, or I can tell you stories about 20 different people, weave them all together so that you see different facets of what makes an ideal human being through the stories of each of these characters. And that's how human beings are fundamentally wired to learn. What is a kid, the moment, yeah, like when a kid grows up, when they first learn to walk, then they learn to talk. And the moment they learn to talk enough, what's the first question that they ask their parents? Tell me a story. That's what human beings are wired to fundamentally do. I feel the way, and I know it's slightly hypocritical coming from a non-fiction author like myself. And my new book is coming a week from now. That's my second book, and it's also non-fiction. But as a consumer, I read a terrible amount of fiction now because I think that's where my mental model has changed. That to be able to genuinely absorb, you need to be able to read those stories, and that's how the human brains. Because if you've read, like for example, if you've read, uh, I'm going to say the common denominator for a lot of people that I meet is people who've read Harry Potter as children, but then they've lost their reading habit. So I take a lot of examples from Harry Potter. It's because it's like a common ground for everybody. They're just fundamentally fantastic lessons about friendship, the value of good and evil, the value of strength and valor when you're faced with inconvenience and evil. Uh, what's the best way to teach all of this to an 11-year-old? Just throw them this book. Yeah, matlab, that's the way they'll just start loving these characters and the strength of friendship over all other bonds in your life, found families. The way to train a 10-year-old on all of these things, you can't do it with a non-fiction book. You can't do it with us. That's why people struggle with reading, is because they're trying to read the wrong things. If you want to read about mortality, about something meaningful that changes your life, read read somebody's biography, read somebody's life story. That's also a story, right? If you read the distillation of the lessons, it's going to be hard for you to remember everything. But if you read a story that, and you're able to viscerally draw from each of the characters some virtue which you want to imbibe in your life, or some contextualizing of your own experience, then fiction is just significantly better. So in kind of helping you through things.
I think you just influenced me to start fiction. So what?
You
What?
should. You must intersperse it. Like probably do. So I read about 2 to 3 books at a time.
Yeah,
You should probably have like one non-fiction book which you do, and then probably one
fiction.
fiction book that you read at the same
Yeah.
time. Whatever you get drawn to more is like when you just sit down on your pillow, you have the blanket on top of you, and you have a hot cocoa in your hand. What does your hand reach for first?
Mm,
It's going to be one of the two, and that will tell you what your mind wants to read.
well, that's
You
lovely.
don't. You won't need to train it or force it.
Yeah. So, what do you do after you finish a book? How do you take away that knowledge? Do you just, let your brain do its job? Do you put your thoughts somewhere in a journal? What do you do?
No, I think I don't worry about
You don't.
retention.
Okay.
It's like I know, I like for example, one of the most moving books that I read in the earlier part of the year was this book, this very simple, tiny book called Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I forgot the name of the character, the central character. Somebody reminded me that the name was Nora, so I won't remember those details.
Mm,
But I very fundamentally remember the choices that she made in the book
wow.
and why she made those choices,
Yeah.
and why those choices spoke to me in the way that they did. So those things, because they emotionally move you. If you cry for a character's death, why did you cry? Because there was something in them that you saw which is currently lacking in your life. Everybody wants a Dumbledore in their life. We all want a mentor figure that we look up to, who always has our back. So when Dumbledore died, why was everybody crying? It's because that relationship, which had respectful distance but extreme honest care, was written in that kind of a way. So I let these characters, these stories just stay in. Sometimes I might mix up two different books in my head, two different characters. But then the thing is, the food that you eat becomes a part of your flesh and bones and muscle. In the same way, the stories that you read become a part of you. You don't have to journal it. Absolutely, because you don't need to write them down, or if you write them down, that's great. I don't do that. I highlight a lot, which means I underline, I annotate sometimes, which means if I have to get back to a book and sometimes remember the stuff that really moved me, I will highlight a lot, and I write on the books a lot, because see, I'm also I don't want to say I'm a writer now because I'm also learning how to write books and better books. So I try and sometimes, especially if I'm reading fiction, just try and put a note there that hey, I saw what the author is doing here and I found it really interesting. So I'll just make some notes sometimes. So that helps the entire retention bit a little. But I don't journal. I mostly don't read any reviews on Goodreads or stuff like that. But yeah, I take a break a lot of times, which means if I finished a book at night, I won't pick up the next. I'll probably give it a day. Sometimes I'll give it slightly more because I just wanted to marinate inside my brain for some time. Especially if it's a book that I've really read and which has been a long commitment. Like if it's a 700-800 page book. Like I'm reading this book called The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. It's a super fun book. It's amazing. But again, it's like a unlikely group of characters thrown in together, their motivations and their trials and tribulations in doing what they're trying to do. I know it'll stay with me. I'll forget the names of the characters, but I'll remember why they did what they did and what their story.
Yeah. And, our conversation, especially the past few minutes on fiction, I never thought that I would even talk about fiction or even consider reading fiction, to be honest, because I love real things in the way that nonfiction does that for you, right? The authors give you tangible information to adopt in your day-to-day life. So for me, I was always gravitated towards that. But the way you described fiction, I'm actually really going to look up a good book and go forward with it. So as part of our closing of this episode, I want to do a quick rapid fire. So what are some books
Sure,
across all
let's go.
genres, fiction, nonfiction, mystical, whatever? Give us your top one or two books across all genres.
I was at a bookshop yesterday and somebody made the unfortunate mistake of recognizing me. They asked me the exact same question. I wasn't able to answer. If you ask me genre by genre, I probably might be able to give you a better answer, but I don't have a best overall book at all.
Okay,
It's very unfair for me
I
to
know.
be. But if you say fiction, non-fiction, I'll
Okay,
probably give you two, three names that come top of my head, which I've
okay.
read.
Let's
Yeah.
start with fiction since that's your favorite.
Uh, I would say I really enjoyed the Miss Bond series in fantasy. I like everything written by Alif Shafak. I think she's the most gifted writer out there. I've read pretty much everything which Rohinton Mystery has written. I particularly liked. I think that's probably a contender for my favorite book of all time. It's I think Such a Long Journey is also great. A Fine Balance is also great. So he's a Canadian Indian author. I think The God of Small Things is a classic, which is fantastic. I read a lot of Frederick Buckman also now. I discovered him slightly late, so My Friends was really good. A Man Called Low was also really
Okay.
nice. But yeah, I think Ocean Wong is also somebody I've started reading a little bit. So On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous and Emperor of Gladness. Those are some good picks. I think you'll never go wrong with any of
And
these.
are these beginner friendly books?
All of
Okay.
them, all of them. So I think. Yeah, none of them are books which will. I won't recommend anything which is super highbrow, lit fake. Like, I struggled reading Dostoevsky, right? Like, it was a pain for me to go through what I
Yeah.
went through, right? Like, White Nights was great, but Brothers Karamazov took a lot of time. So that's why I don't recommend it enough because I know you need to be a certain place in
Right.
your life to be able to read. A lot of it gets very dry
Yeah.
and indulgent. So read Elif Shafak. Just start with Elif Shafak, Rohinton Mystery, Matt Haig, Frederick Buckman. These are very mainstream authors, very, very popular. You'll find them in any bookstore possible. So great places to
Okay.
start.
And what about nonfiction?
Non-fiction, I think the one book that I've read the most is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I've read that the most,
Yes.
which means, and I've read that at different points in my life, so I've read that a lot. There's a biography that I read every year, which is When Breath Becomes Air, Paul Kalanithi. It's just the most stunning possible book, and I think that's the book I've gifted the most in my life to people. It's a biography of a Stanford educated surgeon, and suddenly in his life he gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, and then in his last year or so, he just writes this book, and he's not able to finish it. And of course, there's no spoiler. Of course, Paul is not with us anymore. But then the epilogue, the last part of the book, is written by Paul's wife, and is survived by his daughter. It's just the most stunning book that you'll ever read. So, in non-fiction, that's a biography that I love. In other business books, I think Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is fantastic. He was an ex-FBI negotiator. That's been a book that has given me a lot of benefits in being able to negotiate slightly better and understand negotiate by subtracting emotion from the equation. That's a great book. And I really like. It's not exactly non-fiction, but if you want to start reading philosophy, then Sophie's World is a great book. It's actually woven like a story, but the bulk of it is actually philosophy. So there's less story and slightly more philosophy in the book. So you can pick that up, or meditation. Those are great non-fiction recommendations from me. Yeah.
And closing question, what's the most counterintuitive thing you've learned about psychology and decision making?
I think the most counterintuitive thing about psychology that I've learned is that I think we overcomplicate a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
which means you don't need a breadth of 200 theories in your head to be able to make sense of why human beings do what they
Yeah.
do. I think if you have the basic sense of the top 10 or 20, I think you should be able to fill in the blanks for a lot of people. Uh, I feel another thing is I used to feel that a lot of people do what they do based on their environment, upbringing, and understanding. But
Yeah.
pretty much 99% of why people do the things that they do are is a function of their childhood,
Mm.
which I started paying way more attention to now. Which means now I see why people's surroundings and upbringing and schooling and aspirations when they were kids, they stick with you till you're 70 and 80. So that's something which I think has been a change in me, that I start, especially for people around me, uh, try to start putting pieces of the puzzle together. That okay, why is this person? Why is this important for this certain person? Why is this not as important? Because everybody has a certain makeup, right? And I think psychologically or physiologically, we are one of
Yeah.
one. Our genetic makeup has never existed and will never exist again. So I am one of one, and you are one of one. So very important to understand the roots of why we do what we do, and why we are driven the way we are, from what we were lacking as
Yeah.
children. So that's a counterintuitive thing that I've now started placing a lot of importance
Yeah.
on.
And I think that answer actually a completely unexpected response, and I love the response because I think it really concludes the episode really well, and it kind of brings back the message to the podcast. Um, Even though, like I said, it's a health podcast, for me, I believe that you achieve good health when your awareness is present in all areas of your life, and that doesn't come just by eating well and working out. It comes from the way that you are at your workplace, the way that you take your side passions, your hobbies. Everything has to be intentional in order for you to really create the life of your dreams. And I think this is
Absolutely
exactly what the podcast is to raise the awareness of everyone. So
awesome. Congratulations on your podcast, and thank you so much for having me. And lovely speaking with you, and more power to what you're
thank
doing.
you so much.
Be minimally processed.